Good morning. I'm going to talk to you about the book of Leviticus. The book of Leviticus it's known as the rule book or the book of the law, but it's more than that. The book of Leviticus is about holiness. It's about being set apart. And Leviticus is the spoken word from God down to Moses and the Israelite people as they're camped around Mount Sinai. Now, God has redeemed the Israelite people, and the Israelite people need to be set apart. They need to be holy to withstand God's divine holy presence as he's living around them. And so the Israelites need to be people purified, worthy of God. So that takes us to Leviticus chapter 19, verse 2, where God says, give the following instructions to the entire community of Israel. You must be holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy. Now, in Leviticus, we learn that God loves to be approached, but we have to approach him on his terms, not ours. And this whole book is about how the nation of Israel needs to live in order to withstand and survive the living presence of God's divine, powerful holiness. Now, Leviticus, it's a record of God's instructions. He's giving these instructions to Moses and the Israelites. So there's lessons on sacrifice, on worship, the priesthood, ceremonial cleanliness, the Day of Atonement, feasts, holy days, and the year of Jubilee. And it tells it in detail about all of those things. Now, the book of Leviticus, it can be divided into two groups. The first is the laws such as you must or you must not. The second is case laws, explaining what to do in certain situations. Now, the purpose for Leviticus is to instruct the Israelites concerning how to maintain holiness within their community so that the Lord could continue to dwell with them. And we see this magnificent display of Lord's presence with the people in the cloud and in the fire, and where his presence landed on the tabernacle. Now, in the book of Leviticus, Aaron is consecrated as the high priest. You remember, Aaron is Moses' brother. But also in this book, because Aaron's sons were also consecrated as priests, they approached God on their terms, not on God's terms. And in the book, they're both killed. And see, God has made Israel his people, his chosen people, a people to represent him on earth. He's established his presence in the tabernacle, a portable, holy place where God can dwell in the midst of this new nation. But if the people are going to live in the presence of God, some things have to change. God is holy, so his people need to be holy too. And one way the ancients understood this holiness term was clean or unclean. And don't get that confused with good or bad. It's a sense of purity. See, people of most religions, past and present, they have an understanding that there are ways that are appropriate or inappropriate when it comes to interacting with the divine. When someone is operating in the alignment of God, these purity laws, they're clean. When you're out of bounds, you're considered unclean. And the book of Leviticus has a lot to say about clean and unclean and how to become clean again if you are unclean. See, God's name is Yahweh, and Yahweh is publicly living with humans in the book of Leviticus. This hasn't happened since the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. So these people, they stay camped around Mount Sinai with God living, dwelling with them throughout this book of Leviticus. And this is not just a day, this is like a year or longer. Leviticus shows the holiness of God and the expectations for his priest and people, so the congregation can appropriately worship and dwell with God. See, if I was to summarize the book of Leviticus, it covers, first thing is sacrifice and offerings. Offerings were for worship, for forgiveness of sin. The burnt offerings was for removal of people's guilt before God. A grain offering restored Israelites to serve God and neighbors. Then there's a peace offering that was for reconciliation between God and man. So the second thing would be worship. God is trying to set up a regular pattern of worship for him or with him. The third would be health. The people are to be morally and spiritually set apart. And they're told what is clean and what is not clean for them to eat to maintain health. The fourth is holiness. We must devote every area of our life to God. The fifth would be Levites. There are 12 tribes. The Levites are the tribe that are the priests. They are in charge of all of the ceremonies, the ceremonial things, the worship things, setting up the things for the Israelites to give the offerings. The Levites are responsible for leading the Israelites to God, not away from God. And we'll see that in the next chapters, how the priest, sometimes they get away from the proper worship. But we see that in the New Testament, because of Jesus Christ, because of his ultimate sacrifice, we no longer have to give burnt grain or slaughter animals for offerings for our sin. See, Jesus paid the price for our sin. Because of Jesus Christ, we have the freedom to serve God, and our relationship with God has been fully restored through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. I hope this helps to understand the book of Leviticus.